People need to be aware of fentanyl and what it does and how dangerous it is.
It is almost like a nuclear bomb that has gone off in the United States of America.
Thank you to the founding sponsor of Undivided, 1530 Mortgage. Visit them at 1530mortgage.com. There's been a lot of conversation leading up to the midterms, I think, about what should not be taught in schools. And it's become this really divisive issue about, pitting parents against teachers and Republicans against Democrats. But today I want to talk about something that there should be bipartisan support on teaching in schools. And that is the danger of fentanyl. Deadly fentanyl overdoses have increased tenfold in the past 6 years, at least here in Washington state. And they're impacting people from all different walks of life. I got a chance to chat with a mother in Mukilteo, which is north of the city of Seattle, about the death of her 20-year-old son and her mission to let other kids and parents know about this deadly drug. It's something I've heard over and over from parents who lose their child to an overdose.
And I thought to myself, thank God I don't have to worry about that. My kids aren't into drugs.
After all, Jen had talked to her 4 kids about everything, she thought.
Drugs, alcohol, vaping, all that stuff.
But not the dangers of fentanyl. How even the smallest bit could be deadly. How it could be hidden in just about any recreational drug or black market pharmaceutical, like Percocet, what her oldest son, Trygve, thought he was taking the day he died. Tell me a little bit about what kind of son he was, what kind of person he was.
Trygve was kind of my wild child. He gave me every gray hair, every wrinkle. He was definitely a thrill seeker, like to jump off bridges, drive too fast, break bones, that sort of stuff. But he also was so caring and loving and kind and gentle, and he would do anything for anybody.
Woo! Yes!
Just before Christmas 2019, Trygve was struggling with a swollen throat that had sent him to the hospital more than once.
They gave him some steroids and antibiotics and a few pain meds to get him through a day or so till the swelling went down.
But the pain and swelling returned over and over. The final time he went to see a doctor, he wasn't prescribed pain medication. So instead, she later learned, her son bought Percocet off a drug dealer who sold to young people, sometimes making the deal through Snapchat.
The next day I texted him and asked, how are you feeling? I didn't get an answer.
When she didn't hear back, Trygve's brother checked in on him. The two were roommates.
Found him in bed and he had passed. He had been gone for over 8 hours.
A medical examiner later ruled that Trygve died of an acute fentanyl overdose, a cause of death that's becoming increasingly common, and not just among hard drug users, like the kind driving Seattle's public safety crisis.
Making sure that these deadly poisons are permanently made illegal requires urgent action.
Republican Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers has been fighting for Congress to permanently ban fentanyl analogs. That would make it easier to prosecute drug dealers who get around existing laws by slightly altering the drug's molecular makeup.
The Democrats, when it comes to fentanyl, want to see some criminal justice reform. So they're opposed to the mandatory minimums that would be attached to the permanent scheduling of fentanyl analogs as an illegal substance in the United States of America. And because of their opposition to the mandatory minimums, and they believe that they disproportionately impact minorities in our country, they to date have not been willing to permanently schedule these fentanyl analogs. And I've had a number of conversations with them because I support some of the criminal justice reform, but I believe that it should be separate from this debate over fentanyl because of what is happening at the southern border in particular and the amount of fentanyl that has flooded into our country. It is almost like a nuclear bomb that has gone off in the United States of America. And it is shattering families, it's taking lives, and it is so common. I'm just blown away how often in the course of a meeting, if I bring up this issue of fentanyl, invariably somebody will share their story of a family member or a friend that has recently died of fentanyl.
But as she and other parents wait for action in Washington, D.C., Jen says she's committed to taking action closer to home. She says she wants every school to make fentanyl education part of drug education for kids.
I got a lot of backlash from some people too, that, well, he made those choices. He went and he bought the drugs. They have consequences. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. You're right. He did. Shouldn't have bought drugs. That's bad. However, he didn't make an educated decision. He had no idea what fentanyl was. Had he known, he wouldn't have bought that pill. He would have figured something else out.
And Jen says her mission is also about informing parents like herself who would never believe they could lose a child to a fentanyl overdose.
People need to be aware of fentanyl and what it does and how dangerous it is.
If you like videos like this, make sure to become an unDivided subscriber on Patreon or Locals. By doing so, you are helping spread this movement to give common sense a comeback. That's patreon.com/undivided or brandykruse.locals.com.